Camtasia is just full of really useful features and functionality. And one of the ones I can't wait to show you because I use it a lot, and I know you will as well, is the callouts function. And it also hides out right here in a tab just beside the zoom and pan. There's a little tab called callouts. And it looks quite simple in the beginning, but there's a lot of functionality that's hiding in this section. So I'm going to take you through the basic functionality of it in this lecture, and then I'll have another lecture where we'll be doing some practical applications of this. So you have options here to add a callout. When you do that, it'll add the last callout you have used, and then you have all kinds of shapes here, and you have a little scroll on the top and the bottom here. Or you can go on the little drop down and it'll pull out all the transitions, all the callouts that are available for this. So you can see we have a number of arrows here, a circle, a rounded rectangle, we have a little bubble, thinking bubble, an octagon, a drop pin, a wedge, a couple bursts, and a seal, and a plain rectangle. As plain as that rectangle looks, by the way, I find it to be one of the most useful features in there, because some of those bubbles, while they look really cute and fun, a lot of times in a professional video setting, they are not as practical to use. Simple is sometimes better. And then we have a number of shapes here, and then we have 8 sketch motions. When you apply those, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment, they're actually not still, they appear, they're being drawn. And then we have some other special functionality down here, which I'm also going to show, including some hotspots and some blurs. So let's start with a very simple one. Let's just bring in a pointy arrow, and I'm on my timeline here. So all I do is I click on my pointy arrow. It is blue right now, and I can move this anywhere I want to in my preview window. And you can see it's put it on a new track because overlapping. And I can now go ahead and I can make a few adjustments to this. For example, I have some text in there. You can have this without any text as well, or you can have some text with it. And by default, the text happens to be orange. Orange text on blue background doesn't look so good, so let's make it white for a moment. We can also, here we have a lot of functionality. We can change the color and the font of the text in here. So let's make it Arial black. And we can choose a little bit bigger size. By the way, you can also override this with just numbers. And we have the text color here, and you have basic formatting, bold, underline, italic. You can center the text. You can format it to be on the top, middle, or bottom aligned as well if you have multiple lines of text. And we just have it nicely centered. And when we look here, it doesn't look bad. So we have a nice little start. We also have the ability to add or take away borders. You can see there's a slight gray border. Let's just make that a white border. And I can also change the thickness. I can either say no border. I can change the thickness of my border. So let's just make this a little thicker. And I can also go in and choose more border colors. All of these functions here allow you to go in as well and choose any color from the spectrum you want to. Or you can even go in and select a color. So I can use that little eyedropper tool and I can go anywhere, for example, my skin color, and provide that color as a sample, and it will then set it up. So sometimes that can be very practical, especially if you have a lot of different colors already in your video file, to take something that represents that well. Now I like the arrow, but I don't like it that much, but I like what I've done in the formatting. So what I can simply do, I can go onto the drop down and I can make that a starburst or any other shape that I want to. Here's a little speech bubble, and I'm not really happy with the blue fill, so I'm just going to give it a light green fill. I think I'm making things worse actually right now. So let's just bring that back to the blue. That actually was not that bad. And if my bubble is too small, I can make that a little bit larger, and I can move it around as to where I want it to be. The other possibility I have, I can just make it a plain rectangle. And one of the things I'm noticing in the rectangle here, I have a little drop shadow. I can also make this a plain white drop rectangle with a little drop shadow, and that would give me the ability to just put some text into it. We had a white text before, so let me just highlight this and make it a black text. There we go. We'll maybe make that bold as well. So if you wanted to show something on the screen, that would be a very simple way to do that. So I'm just going to delete this particular one because I want to show you some other functionality here that you can do with the callouts. We have, of course, some other nice shapes. A rounded arrow always looks good. And you can see it retained that blue color in the fill with that outline color I had set for my skin tone. And I can stretch this. I feel like I should make some funny comment about myself in the text here because I keep pointing arrows at myself. And we can also go here into the sketch motion in a moment. So let's just delete this arrow. And to delete the arrow, you simply highlight it and then you hit the delete button. Or you also have the opportunity here to highlight the media and just click on remove callout, and that will also delete that particular callout. I'm just going to scrub forward a little bit into my PowerPoint presentation here. And I want to show you some further functionality. And one of the ones is the sketch motion, and it's really neat. It's really well implemented by Camtasia. So I'm just going to use a rectangle. And I just need to scrub forward a little bit. And I can change my sizing here. Just going to make it a little bit bigger. And now if we go ahead and watch this part, you'll see how this is being drawn.
Key points on don't type out your message word for word. Typing out your presentation word for word distracts the audience.
And that's a really neat function to use if you need to show something on the screen. You will probably have noticed it or not noticed it consciously, but I've used this functionality quite a bit in this course as I'm showing you where to go in a menu point or where to go on a screen or highlighting what's shown on a screen. I find this functionality very, very, very practical. And if you don't like this hand-drawn function here where the lines are a little rugged and not as straight, you can change this to a straight rectangle as well, and the functionality itself works very much the same.
Essential key points on don't type out your message word for word. Typing out your present.
And you'll see that you have a very clean line in this case. You can also change it to a circle if you want to, if you were to show a bigger area.
Key points on don't type out your message word for word.
And the other thing that you might have to play with when you use this functionality is the border. For one, you can change the color, and the red is pretty good, but you can change any other color you want to. And the bigger thing you can change to is the width. So if you have, like in this case, we had a very thin outline, so I just changed it to 8 point. We could probably even go up to a 10 point and just give it a little bit more of a substantial look.
Key points on don't type out your message.
And you can see it already has a lot more impact. So especially if you have an image underlaid or a video underlaid that's quite busy, you may have to A, play with the color to make sure that you have a contrasting color to whatever you're showing, and B, you have a thick enough outline that it actually grabs some attention. The other thing, as you can notice on this clip here, we have a little triangle here and a little triangle there. And what that is, in this case, is the draw time and the fade out time. So I can change the time it takes to draw the circle. Right now it's set to 1 second. You can change this actually right in this properties area here. And I can change this to 2.5 seconds, for example. I'm just going to replay this for you.
Limit text to essential key points on don't type out your message word for word.
And you can see this was drawn much slower than it was in the first time. So this is something you want to watch for. Again, it's something you need to individually adjust to fit your video. There's no right or wrong draw time. There's no right or wrong fade out time. It really depends on where you're overlaying this in your video and how much attention you want to draw quickly to that area. Here's also the ability to make a hotspot. Now, depending on how you process your video afterwards, It is functionality that may or may not work. It needs to be a video that's processed with a smart media player. So if you're just putting it on YouTube or you're creating an online course, most times that will not be functionality that is available to you. I'm just going to delete this for a moment here. And I want to show you a few more functions in this area. One that is quite handy are those special areas here. And blur is one of them that is super handy. And this sometimes comes into play if you have private information that you want to cover in a video. For example, I was recording something the other day and I wasn't watching it that it actually showed somebody's name in the corner. So rather than re-recording all my video that I had done, I just chose to blur out that name in the corner where it was. So just let's take the words PowerPointer, and I can just even make this so much smaller. And now when we look at it, it's nicely blurred out. You can actually control the intensity of the blur. You can go anywhere from 0% all the way up to 100%, which makes it quite noticeable that you have a blur. So I would settle somewhere in between here. There we go. And that makes it just enough so it can't be read easily anymore, but not so harsh that it looks really, really badly done. You can also turn this into a spotlight, which is the complete opposite of the blur, where we take everything else away except for the area we want to show. So in this case, I may want to just show a little part of my presentation and then move it to another area at a later point. You can also use the highlight function. I'm just going to delete this one so we don't have too many things going on at once here. And you have the ability to take any area of your screen and apply a highlight to it. Again, you can change the size just like you were able to do with the other functions. And you can also change your fill color. Obviously, I don't want to change it to a dark color on a dark text, but possibly a light blue would be appropriate. Depending on which colors you're using in your presentation or in your video, try and use something that either complements it or is a harsh contrast against that. And then there's one of the most important functions, and that's the text. And I'm just going to delete this one here and bring my video back to a spot where we have maybe something a little bit more flattering. There we go. And I'm just going to show you how to do a text overlay. Here we go. Let's just put it here. And I'm just going to make this a little bit wider and a little bit bigger here. And I'm just typing the words test text. And we can leave it black. And we can make it a little bit larger though. And bold. And there we go. Just like that, we have a simple little text box that we can change at any time. And we can bring some more text into it, and we can move the text around. It's very, very important functionality. I use this all the time to overlay text onto my video. And in the next lecture, I'll actually show you with some proper text how to do that, so it really comes together nicely in a project.